What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the South. We're going to be talking about the history of the South. And we're going to be talking about how everything that we know, how everything that is perceived or projected, that is taught, that is in an attempt to define and explain the South in our history is wrong. All right. Because depending upon who you ask in the South, the truths, and I say that plurally, the truths, the perspective, the mental thought, the mental truth that has been taught or explained, depending upon who you ask, is very much different and many times actually very conflicting. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to watch this episode from the Atlantic Journal Constitution. All right. The producer Coralie Barra or Baru. I don't know exactly how to say her name, but she does an excellent job. She's a producer of AJC, and she does an excellent job of presenting, of talking about this issue in a very open way, and I think it does a very good, is a deep. And it's a part of a series that they're doing on a deep exploration of the South, and understanding the South or knowing the South. And so anyway, we're going to go through this and react to it. The video is 21 minutes long, but is a fabulous video, and I just want to present it. If you've never seen it, we're going to present it here. We're going to talk about it, and yeah. So thank you very much for joining me here. If you're new to the channel, welcome to ClearTalk. If you'd like to check out more from the channel, consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. If you want to check out videos from my other channels, you have JMDPLAY, puzzling. If you like what you see over there, do the same over there. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. All that's free for you, helps out the channels tremendously. Okay. If you want to go a little bit further, we have merch now. Okay. I have merch for every single one of the channels. All right. Go to pinkinnovations.com/collection/JMD merch and pick up something there. All right. And if you want a discount on that merch, then go to Patreon. All right. $2 a month at Patreon. You can support any of the channels you would like to support, and you get a discount on the merch, along with private chat communities and other goodies and stuff. So go over there, check that out. That would be amazing. Any support you give is very much appreciated, and I thank you very much. If you're returning, you're freaking amazing. Welcome, and keep coming back, because you're what makes JMD Nation. Okay, so as you see today, we're back. I've done a video earlier. This is the second video for the day. We're back in the studio for today anyways, because I needed assistance with these videos. It's something I've been working on since last week, and trying to work up around doing this. So thank you very much for joining me. So let me swap over here. All right. I'm going to put my headphones on to listen along with you. Why? Oh my. I just realized that my headphones broke. That is unfortunate. Okay, we're going to have to look at that later. I don't know how that happened, because they were not broke a minute ago. All right, so all right, thank you very much. Let's get to this. Let's go. Hold on, back up. Sorry, I wanted to back up to the beginning. Why are you being so weird? And that is not even playing. I hate when it does this. This program just, 1 minute it'll decide to read, and next minute it just won't.
The South has a brand. Front porches, good food, warmth, things that just make everything seem a little bit more kind. At the center of all of this is Southern hospitality, and it literally shows up everywhere. From tourism ads,
South Carolina's got super friendly people.
commercials,
Hey, neighbor, come on in.
politics,
If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
and even in reality TV.
On the new series, Southern Hospitality.
It's a key trait of the region. But the more I looked into it, the more it didn't fully match the story I grew up with. Because when I started tracing that idea back, I didn't land on something so warm and fuzzy.
Gentle manners.
That is very, like, I just want to briefly state, that's something that growing up, and like I live in Mississippi, and the Mississippi motto, like, it's like state motto, whatever, it's the hospitality state. All right. And in growing up and learning what hospitality means, and then learning about the history of Mississippi, and then also just learning people, knowing the community and everything, I oftentimes felt a little conflicted, even early on as a child, that once learning and understanding what hospitality meant, and that our state was supposed to be the hospitality state. And then that, of course, learning that's broader to the whole Southern, like, idea or something. I felt very conflicted, even at a young age, questioning, like, really, we're the hospitality state, and like, but how? Like, because I don't see it. I especially knowing the history and the just when I was younger, even way more than now, but like the more overt, like, racism, bigotry, prejudiceness within the state towards certain peoples, right? I'm like, that doesn't make us hospitable at all. Like, why are we called that? So, and this, and then learning and understanding that was a broader concept, even across the entirety of the South, and where that comes from, she's going to talk about that. So let's get to it.
Courtesy, hospitality. Many of the ideas that we still associate with the people of the South came from the days when plantation life was in full flower.
This idea of Southern hospitality, this is a tradition that has its roots in slavery. You have visitors coming from the north to visit your plantation. You give them these lavish feasts. You show them the slaves are happy. Many Northerners would go back north and write about their positive experiences.
Over time, of course, Southern hospitality evolved, but the root of it pointed to somewhere more complicated. Perhaps this wasn't just one misconception, but rather part of a larger pattern in the South. And it led me here. I got it in! To a park that's one of the most visited attractions in Georgia.
Welcome to Georgia's Stone Mountain Park.
But what's happening here today doesn't quite match what this place was built to represent. And for something that's so big, it's surprising so many people don't know what they're looking at. Do you know anything about Stone Mountain?
Not too much. It's a very tall mountain.
Before you started working here, did you know the history around Stone Mountain?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. To be honest, I wasn't too sure either. And it made me wonder, if something so visible could be misunderstood, what does that say about how our identity gets shaped? Not just how we act.
I love the South. I love its culture. I love our heritage.
We've always thought we were a place apart.
But how we remember.
I don't believe slavery was the cause of the war.
Slavery was the reason, but not for the reason you want to think.
So I wanted to find out, what happens if we don't all share the same story?
They were my ancestors, and that's what they did. That's all part of the story that makes us us.
People see their Southern identity as being part of the Confederacy, but you can take pride in being from the South without having to take pride in this.
Exactly.
And what's at stake for Southern identity if we don't?
Yeah, so that's a great introduction. I mean, and that's what she's going to explore in this, is how the different views and what has been sort of systematically presented down through the generations as the history and what that history means in different ways. Through whether or not it's just family stories down through, or and what she's even more going to talk about is just literally the educational system, purposefully altering and changing or omitting the harshness in favor of trying to put the most positive spin they could on the history of the South, and that quite literally in textbooks, changing the view, the policies that, or at least attempting policies to literally do that, to basically whitewash, if you will, the history of the South, and that's and I can straight up say that is exactly what has happened. From a white guy telling you that's what happened. So let's go. Let's continue.
Just 15 miles outside of Atlanta sits the largest piece of exposed granite in the world. And carved into the side of this rock is the biggest Confederate monument ever created.
Oh, Ernie!
I'm meeting up with AJC reporter Ernie Suggs.
Ready to go climb the mountain?
I don't know if we're gonna climb. Let's go up.
To find out what exactly this place is.
And coming up is the carving. It is of Stonewall Jackson, Jefferson Davis, and Robert E. Lee.
And what unique story it tells about the South. We're here at Stone Mountain, which is the most visited attraction in Georgia, but there's a hidden history that so many people don't know.
Stone Mountain is this great, beautiful place where people come out here and walk, and you see people coming out here enjoying nature. But it also holds the largest Confederate memorial in the world. So I wouldn't say it's hidden, but I would describe Stone Mountain as a place where our history is conflicted. Let's just take 1915, for example. The Ku Klux Klan, the modern version of the Klan that we kind of know with the hats and the white hoods, was right here on top of Stone Mountain.
In fact, this is where they held their official refounding ceremony. The Klan also helped fund
That's something
the
that I did not know.
And the original sculptor had deep ties to the group as well. And how do you feel? You're able to enjoy the park like so many others, but also that history exists. The contrast, how does that make you feel?
I mean, living in the South, we're faced with a contrast every day. If you think about it as an African American who lives in the South, you're faced with a contrast, where you go to school, how you're educated, how you're treated going to the mall, how you're treated driving down the street and a police officer stops you. I love the South. Sometimes I'm mad at the South, but it's one of these contradictory places.
It's a duality.
It's really, really hard to define.
And when you're talking about the South,
really
like I grew up
hard
in
to
Texas,
live in.
What is the South to you?
I mean,
Georgia.
like it's hard for me to live in as someone who is completely opposed, as a white person, completely opposed to the history of the South and what it actually represented. And through slavery and everything, like I absolutely hate our history when it comes to that. I despise it, and I wish it had never happened. But I mean, unfortunately, it did, and we have to face that. And as a white, like I said, as a white person, acknowledging that and having to deal with that is hard, even for me. I can't even imagine what it is for a black person living here to have to face that duality. Literally knowing that not only did their ancestors have to deal with that in the most horrible ways, but even now, even to this day, there's still systematic issues around racism, around policies, and practices that still put them at a disadvantage, still put them in a atmosphere that is still negative towards them, still has a oppressive nature towards them. That's got to be still, I can't even imagine how hard that really is. As much as I try to, sympathize with it or try to understand it, there's no way I can. But at least learning and educating myself and trying to have, empathy for all of this just egregious history, is just only the smallest, just thing that I could at least do, right? So anyways, but yes, it has got to be a conflict even with a memorial like this, or not a memorial, but like a natural place like this that, is really broken, is separated from as a natural place, that has absolutely nothing to do with the outside human, just social constructs that unfortunately have placed a memory on this place. The place is beautiful, but when you then, unfortunately it connects with the likes of the KKK and the Confederacy and that monument that was carved into it. It's unfortunate. It truly is unfortunate, because it's a beautiful place, and humans have basically we've basically ruined that to some degree, through that. So, in my opinion, anyways. But let's continue.
Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Texas is the South, North Carolina.
But it sounds like when we're talking about the South, we're talking about the states of the former Confederacy.
Exactly. Former Confederate states, that's the South.
Stone Mountain is an ode to the Confederacy, and people are proud of that. But for so many, it's much, much darker.
The history of the South is dark. The Civil War is probably one of the most consequential periods in American history, probably the most consequential, because not only did it end slavery, but it also kind of changed how the country thought about itself.
I wanted to understand on a deeper level how this war has influenced the Southern identity of today. So I met up with people for whom this history isn't just something they read about, but something they dedicate entire weekends to.
I don't know how to describe it, but some events will get you really caught up in it. You almost forget that you're reenacting because it becomes so real.
I have just landed in Sandersville, and I'm about to be transported back to 1864 to see a battle that happened here in Sandersville during Sherman's March to the Sea.
What's the news? Yankees are coming! Yankees are coming!
The Yankees are coming.
And other wagons confiscated.
When they go like this, when they cover their ear and they look away, that's when they're getting ready to fire.
Okay. Now, this was not the biggest battle in the Civil War by any means, but these reenactors are really having living history here in the town center. I'm curious to understand what drives them.
Citizens of Sandersville, welcome back into the Union.
Hear from the town. Why is this important to play out history in this way? Oh my God, 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 oh my God. This is the campground where the men have been staying all night long in preparation for this day. They are going all in, getting into character. There's a blacksmith tent over here. We're back in 1864. I have to talk to Stacy, who's one of the organizers of this whole thing.
I've been reenacting for 38 years, started when I was 18 years old.
What made you start?
I think back to what my ancestors were facing. I had some fought for the North and the South. And I just think 160 years ago, I had an ancestor out here who was in a lot of pain or dying. And so just to go out there and try to get in that moment, just experience a little bit of what he was experiencing.
What would you say to people who might look at this as you're celebrating? What was a difficult time for many?
Very complicated. I feel like we're educating. There's no hidden agenda, no motive behind it. It's just history. It's just something that happened. But we've been labeled as racist. All they hear on news and things is a Confederate flag, and we're racist, and we're racist. KKK. It had nothing to do with the KKK, you know, because you had a few people along in time that maybe misused a Confederate flag. It don't make all of us bad.
The Confederate flag does bring a lot of emotions for people.
It does.
What does that represent for you, and what do you make of it?
I'm not ashamed of it, but I also don't associate it with racism. I don't believe slavery was the main issue of the war. Was it an issue? Yes, it was. Very much so. It was definitely an issue, but I don't believe it was the cause of the war.
If it wasn't just about slavery, then what else was it about?
States' rights. The North was pushing their views on telling us how we was going to run the South, and we didn't like that. We didn't want to accept that, so we withdrew from the United States and formed the Southern states, the Confederate state. They was fighting for their rights.
Come on!
They were fighting for their rights to own slaves. It wasn't just like fighting for your rights to exist, or fighting for your rights to like health care, or fighting for your rights to, you know, work a job, or unionize a job, or something. It was quite literally the right to own slavery, to own slaves, because the North had decided, the majority of the U.S., the northern part of the U.S. had decided that slavery was no longer needed, no longer necessary, or even on a moral ground was, you know, not acceptable. There's multiple reasons I'm sure they decided, but ultimately they was like, yeah, we need to end this. And the South wholeheartedly unionized together to make sure that they reserved the right to do so. So it was completely around slavery. It was. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The actual makeup of the Confederate states, their doctrine was wholeheartedly consumed with the idea of maintaining slavery, which will be mentioned here. So he's either misinformed, or he's not willing to accept the truth. He's trying to apologize out all these things. It wasn't really about that. We just wanted our rights. We just wanted, you know, we didn't want them telling us what to do. But he's not going. The next step is, okay, well, but what were they telling you what to do, or not to do, or was not going to be allowed anymore? And that's what you were fighting back against. So.
We're just been taken over by the federal government. We own you now. Come on.
Sometimes, as a Southerner and our simple way of life, we do feel like sometimes there's things being forced on us that we don't like.
Leave them nothing. Leave them nothing to spare.
Here now, the most prominent orator, abolitionist, who spoke of hope for our nation, Frederick Douglass.
My name is John H. Anderson, Jr. I'm a Civil War reenactor. I do Frederick Douglass, the famed orator and abolitionist.
Dear friends and fellow countrymen, we are here to speak and contemplate on the plight of our dear and glorious nation, which finds itself on the verge of utter destruction.
Some people don't believe that slavery was the reason of the Civil War. What do you make of that? It wasn't the sole.
That's a real good question. Slavery was the reason, but not for the reason you want to think. Not for humanitarian reasons. The way we think about slavery now, we emphasize the inhumanity, the barbarism, just the ugliness of such a situation, all the brutal treatment and so on. That is not why Lincoln went to war. The Civil War actually broke out because of economics. Abraham Lincoln did not want to see slavery move into territories beyond where it was already. The South saw the ending to what their life was based on, which was slave labor. So they decided, thanks, we're gonna go at it on our own, we're gonna form our own country. And Lincoln said, no, you're not. So he went to war to hold the Union together.
Why do you think it's important for you to be here today and have this perspective represented?
So people like you would ask questions and record it or repeat it to people that want all the short answers to a complicated situation, and therefore put us all in danger of repeating the same mistakes that we never understood in the first place.
And that was a very interesting opinion of the of why Lincoln went to war. And it's something that I honestly hadn't even really completely thought about before. And I would agree. I mean, there's a very good likelihood that economics had very much to do with it. Now, his perspective was that the barbarism, the immorality, the egregiousness, violence, all the things that was happening through slavery was not the reason why. Like, it totally was not the reason why. It was all about economics. I'm not completely convinced of that. I do think that there was probably a degree of all of that had to do with it as well. But economics probably certainly had something to do with it. Because if you had a lot of resources that trade was happening, as they show, cotton and other things that we produce in the South that traded through to the other states across the rest of what was the United States at that point. If they succeeded from it, then all of that economical trade and stuff would either cease to exist or would very much change, and cause an issue with the rest of the states in that trade of those items, and so that very much probably did have something to do with it. I wholeheartedly agree. It very much probably did. And from that perspective, yes, it doesn't sound or feel like a very good reason to go to war, but especially if that was solely the reason. But I do think that there was very much a degree. Well, his argument was that Lincoln didn't go to war for that. So maybe his perspective is that Lincoln solely didn't consider that. All he was concerned with was economics. And I don't know. But I do feel like there was a overall, like when you look at the overall of the rest of the United States and the sentiment around slavery and the fact of abolishing it, I do think that was a greater argument around not allowing the southern states to succeed. But I mean, hey, maybe even I'm wrong on that. I don't know. But it was very interesting to hear that, because I never really had thought about the economics around that. And that certainly very likely playing a role, no doubt. So yeah. Anyways, let's continue.
This Civil War reenactment experience was a lot to take in. What I found so fascinating is that two Southerners reenacting the same war had different ideas about what caused it. Stacy didn't see slavery as the main reason to go to war, and John believed slavery was central, but argued the North wasn't fighting purely for moral reasons either. And I wondered, how much does that difference in understanding influence how we define Southern identity today? So I called historian Sheffield Hale to help me sort through what was true and why the story of the Civil War still feels so personal today. So I went to a Civil War reenactment, and I left, I think, with more questions than answers. The people I spoke to, two men specifically, they gave me two very different versions of the history that they were playing out. Is there an official on the record cause of the Civil War?
If you look at what the white people in the South said before the war, you look what was in their articles of secession, to the extent they explain why they seceded, it's slavery. In the Confederate Constitution, slavery is called out, which is
multiple times.
The American Constitution, where it doesn't appear. So what were they fighting for? Well, they're fighting for that document. They're fighting for that government that would maintain a slaveholding economy. To say otherwise is an after-the-fact rationalization. That doesn't mean that they're accurate.
These rationalizations Sheffield mentioned got me interested. Why do people believe things when the hard evidence says otherwise? It brought me to this concept called the lost cause.
Exactly.
It's an ideology that began after the war and was coined by a Confederate sympathizer and journalist from Virginia named Edward A. Pollard. So I went to meet Sheffield in person at the Atlanta History Center to learn more about it.
So the lost cause is essentially a rationale after the war for the South to try to understand why they lost and to rationalize it and say, we had all this death, all these terrible things happened to us. What happened? How can we say that we were not the bad people? And so they came up with this system that said that it was not about slavery, it was about actually anything in the world other than slavery was a cause.
Because I don't understand. I mean, if you see it even today in the argument about war, arguing about any kind of civil unrest, it's good against evil. Like that's what and you hear that so much, especially from what we hear it from a lot. MAGA, the Republicans, the South, Southerns, those that are quote unquote highly conservative. They want there's this indoctrination through like religion, they like good and evil and things like, and so to make it so they were very much thinking that they were going to war for the good of humanity. Like this was a good, that if God was on their side, then they would win. And to have lost the war means that, oh, God did not favor us. So we must, or we can't be evil though, because I mean, we don't feel that we're evil. So how do we rationalize that? How do we rationalize the fact that we lost? And usually, it's argued that evil loses against good, and how can they be good and we not? So there's a rationalization. There's a whole systematic drive to completely change and alter the opinion and thoughts, and to explain away why they lost but were not evil. So, and this is where this goes.
Because of the war, because they knew that was not a good look.
The Atlanta History Center is filled with evidence of how this lost cause ideology and narrative change was spread. One mural stood out to me though. It's called the Cyclorama.
It was about the city's biggest battle of the defeat of Atlanta.
This is incredible.
Why this is so important, an artifact. It's because it was painted to celebrate a Northern victory, but it comes to the South, and this guy, Atkinson, paints a few uniforms of different colors and then sort of sells it as the only Confederate victory ever painted.
That is fucking crazy. That to act like there was a Confederacy victory by repainting a battle where the Confederates lost and repainting uniforms to adjust the appearance of that battle, rewriting history just to try to say, hey, we did get a victory. We did win here. And so, yay, good did prevail to some degree. Like, that is wild.
So this was repainted to make it look like a Southern victory.
Yeah, it's not a Southern monument. But we turned it into one because we're so good at doing that. I think a lot of people like their heritage, history with all the bad parts left out. And that's what they see here. They're proud of their ancestors that stood up to the federal government. And so that's why you can be for these rebels. They're against the government, but love America.
And how much of this lost cause do you feel like still plays out in how the South sees itself today?
As we see today, still very much
whether you know it or not,
sentiment.
your parents told you, and your grandparents told you, and your teachers told you, and so you believed it. And you wanted to believe it because you weren't guilty and you feel like you were part of something. And it's still here today.
And most certainly your family would not lie to you, right? Why would your grandparents or your parents or your great-grandparents or aunts and uncles and like why they wouldn't lie to you about this, right? There's no way. But it certainly has happened. And very much probably because they were lied to.
This brings me to.
Or just, once again, trying to make themselves feel better.
The United Daughters of the Confederacy, otherwise known as the UDC. They were a post-war organization that were instrumental into changing the narrative around the Civil War. They helped fund Confederate monuments like this one behind me, hosted essay contests, organized field trips, and even had collectible cards of Confederate generals and soldiers. The goal was simple: to ensure that a more honorable version of the South's past was the version that survived. And the most effective place to do this? Well, it was in schools. The UDC created a textbook committee that set out guidelines as to what counted as acceptable history or not. Books that said that the South fought for slavery, rejected. Books that labeled Confederates as rebels, also rejected. Effectively, they influenced years of curriculum that promoted the lost cause to help ensure that children were learning a very specific version of history.
Sound familiar? Sound familiar? And what has happened over the last decade or so in some of these southern states with trying to do book bannings, trying to, again, change and alter curriculum to better make America in general sound better than its history, trying to eliminate actual facts. Sounds familiar, huh? This has been a strategy of the South for decades now. And it started, or at least this idea started from the Confederacy after the Civil War.
To see how deep this went, I wanted to put some textbooks to the test. Here are two popular late primary middle school textbooks, one from the South and the other from the North. The Southern one was written by a member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, Susan Pendleton Lee. By 1904, every county in Virginia had approved this textbook. This is how the Southern textbook describes Abraham Lincoln. Awkward, ugly, violent, and he thought that the South had no rights in the territories, which means he didn't think the South really should have a say in the country at all. Now let's go above the Mason.
That is crazy.
See what a northern
that is crazy to think that and to say that.
Textbook says about the same man. The author here writes that Lincoln was undeviatingly honest, always the servant of his reason, who knew that slavery was a great moral, social, and political evil. Which brings me to how these textbooks talked about slavery. Okay, check this out. There's a whole section called The Benefits and Evils of Slavery. Here the author writes, the ignorant, heathen Africans had been greatly benefited by their 250 years of slavery. Thousands and thousands of them had become civilized and Christianized as they could have not been in any other way. They were the happiest and best cared for working people in the world. Their owners could not therefore pity them, as the Northern abolitionists professed to do.
Does that not sound familiar? Haven't we heard that recently about the benefits of slavery and how slaves benefited because they were able to gain education and blah, 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 and all this kind of shit? That it was a benefit for them to be slaves. We've heard that argument here recently, and it's because of this kind of bullshit. And this is going back to the 1800s. And what was being taught in schools, in textbooks, the ignorant heathen Africans are just that alone should tell you where this is going. Had been greatly benefited by their 250 years of slavery. Thousands and thousands of them have become civilized because they were so wild and uncivilized before, and Christianized because that is very important to have God and Jesus to be the Jesusification of people, as they could not have been in any other way. They were the happiest and best cared for working people in the world. Wow. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Their owners could not therefore pity them as the Northern abolitionists professed to do. We can't pity them because we take such good care of them. What are you talking about? We don't pity. It's glory to be a slave. Because otherwise they would have just died, or they would have, they're so uncivilized. They would, we took care of them. They benefited from us. They were better taken care of than those working in the North, and regular ass job. They're better taken care of than the white people. What are you talking about? Bro. Wow. Just fucking wow.
This idea of slaves being happy doesn't just show up in this textbook. There's other examples. Here it says that they were cared for by their masters on the plantation and were as happy as their condition would permit. This idea shows up
as happy as their condition could permit. That is a tell-all, is it not? That actually might be true. I mean, because the conditions permitted were pretty fucking low. So they were as happy as they could be. Oh my God.
Pretty often in these Southern textbooks. It'd be easy just to write these books off as, well, history. I mean, they're over 100 years old. But the ideology didn't just disappear. This wasn't just a moment. It was infrastructure over time. Today's textbooks aren't written by Confederate groups anymore, but rather by academics that are reviewed by committees. But if you look closely, traces of the lost cause narrative are still there. You'll find it in subtle wording, what's included and what's not. In 2015, a mega publisher in Texas described the Atlantic slave trade as bringing millions of workers to America to work on plantations. It avoided the word slaves altogether. And in 2023, the Florida State Board of Education approved language that said Black people benefited from slavery. It allowed them to develop skills that could be used for their personal benefit. And here in Georgia, a 2022 law banned what it called divisive concepts, which restricted how teachers could talk about race and racism. All of this is going on top of ongoing conversations about book bans and school curricula. Now, none of this...
CRT, y'all MAGA and Trump supporters, bashing and banging on, how, critical race theory. They're trying to make white people look bad. It's because you fucking were. But that ain't even what critical race theory is really about anyways. But I digress.
This is identical to what groups like the United Daughters of the Confederacy were doing, but it raises a similar question. Who decides what version of history is told? And that matters because those choices go beyond textbook and influence how we see ourselves. For a long time, I believed history was a record, a fixed account of what actually happened. But I've realized it's not that simple. History is a story. What gets written down and what gets left out, it's a choice. And here at Stone Mountain, the fight over that choice is happening in real time.
A Confederate group has filed a lawsuit to try and stop a new exhibit at Stone Mountain Park.
Through the Stone Mountain Memorial Association, the state of Georgia is preparing to add a truth-telling exhibition here. One that would include the site's ties to the KKK and its resistance to the civil rights movement.
It's a long and complicated story, but we think it's important to tell the whole story about the park.
It's already faced backlash from Confederate veteran groups who say that version of history violates state law, which says that the park must remain a Confederate memorial.
It's crazy. That is crazy. So they're wanting, understand this. The state of Georgia is wanting to add an educational program at Stone Mountain that is basically a truth-telling program to actually lay out honesties and facts, truth about Stone Mountain and its history, associations, all this kind of stuff. And Confederate veterans, associations, groups, or whatever are pushing back and fighting against that because they want, there's the state law, which is probably forever ago, like put in place, that Stone Mountain remain a Confederate monument. And that goes against that because it tells what they don't agree is the truth, because it makes them look bad. It makes Confederates look bad because they were fucking bad. So they literally are arguing to no, do not tell people the truth. Please, let's continue to lie to them. Because otherwise we look bad. And we can't take that. We can't accept to look bad. We must look good. That's sad. That's fucking sad.
It is intended to be a memorial, which means that you're supposed to take the positive aspects of the Confederacy and memorialize them.
Most of the lawsuits against the
Are you,
truth-telling exhibition
let me
have
back
been
that the fuck
dismissed.
up. Listen to that again. Listen to this guy again.
A Confederate memorial.
It is intended to be.
I don't even know who this guy is, but listen to him.
Be a memorial, which means that you're supposed to take the positive aspects of the Confederacy and memorialize them.
It's meant to be a memorial, which means you are supposed to take the positive things and memorialize that. Let's forget about the negative. Let's forget about all the bad stuff. Let's forget about all the hatred, the disgusting treatment, all the things that we did. We can't. No, let's don't fuck. KKK. Oh, no, the hangings, the killings, the murders, the rapes, all the shit that we did to slaves, humanitarian issues, immoral things that we did. Don't talk about that. Let's try to focus on the positive. And that's what this whole argument, that's even the whole argument about America in general. It's to not bring up the negative things. Just don't talk about bad history, yo. We gotta be good. We gotta stay positive. We gotta look like we're amazing, even though there's all this egregious shit. Okay, let's don't talk about all the stuff that we did to the Native Americans. That's just that makes us look bad. Don't do that. We gotta look good. We are good. We're good. We're godly. Because in God we trust, remember? So we must look good. It's a religious as much as white washing of all of our fucking history. And that ideology, that perspective, that opinion is very much captured in Southern Confederacy, in Southern conservatism, in religious conservatism, in that far conservative wing of Republicans, the MAGA types, all this. This is very much their mentality. No, we can't talk We can't talk about the bad shit. We got to only talk about the good shit. That's what needs to be, just don't focus on any of the negative. We don't want them to know. We don't want future society knowing about all this stuff.
Most of the lawsuits against the truth-telling exhibition have been dismissed, and it is scheduled to open by the end of 2026.
Good.
But the tensions we see today are more of the same, a battle about who gets to write Southern history for generations to come.
Not just Southern history, but American history altogether.
Agreeing on the past can feel impossible because often we weren't told the same story.
We're just people who love our history and our heritage. These people are fighting for the heritage of a racist alliance that fought for slavery.
What we try to do is bring the temperature down and not blame people or shame people. So let's just talk about the truth of what we got and where can we go from here.
So what really matters is how the South decides to tell its story going forward. Can a more unified Southern identity exist when the history it's built on is still being contested? The choice is ours.
The history that it's being told is a lie. And if you continue to tell a lie, then there's no way to move past it, because there will always be that's the reason why there's such a stronghold with people, Confederate protecting people, because they have a altered reality of that history, and they can't cope with focus or with acknowledging negativity, with looking bad, because the general human nature is you just don't want to look bad, you don't want to feel bad, you don't want to look negative, you don't want to seem evil. And everything around slavery and the history of slavery, not just in the United States and our history with it, but the history of slavery throughout all millennials, throughout the entirety of the world history, going back thousands of years, it's all been horrible. And the fact that it took so long for us for the idea of slavery to become this might not be right. It took thousands of fucking years, thousands of years for people to be like, that one thing that we do where we enslave people and we make them do shit for our own benefit because we, and we reap all the benefits of it and we treat them like shit. Maybe that's bad. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we should do things a little differently. Give them some freedoms. It's sad. It's sad. It's pathetic, quite frankly. And I guess because it being such a long period of time that it was, acceptable and, practiced and thought of as okay, this is not really evil, this is not bad, because we saw in the educational move afterwards to try to promote it as this benefited them. Otherwise they would have been barbaric and uncivilized like animals. We brought them God and Jesus and the Bible. That makes us more because we brought them to Jesus. That's the most, we should focus on that. We enslaved them for heaven. It would take a complete re-education and a willingness to accept that re-education of the facts, of the truth, of what actually happened, which would more than likely take generations of change. I mean, ultimately, I do feel like eventually the truth will succeed in the majority of generations to come. It is, you know, once we get a couple of generations out of the way, I mean, that sounds bad to say, but it's the truth. It's the honesty, because those are generations that have been fooled. They've been brainwashed, whitewashed, Confederate washed of the truth. And they're not willing to accept anything other than that, because then that would be them facing the truth that they were lied to, by people that they trusted and loved and cared for. And that can't possibly be the case. But yeah, this was an amazing video. Amazing video. Again, some of the stuff that I knew and I've learned and known for a long time. And then some things that I did not know. I did not know a lot about Stone Mountain, a lot about this stuff about Stone Mountain. I mean, I knew that the Confederacy thing was there. But I've always just considered, like, I didn't know there was so much of a history around it on Stone Mountain. Like, I didn't know the KKK connection and all like that, things like. I've been to Stone Mountain, but I was like 3, I think, or something like that. 2. When I was taken, so I don't remember it at all. Like, I've seen pictures, but I don't remember it like in here at all. But I mean, but again, it's sad that it's such a beautiful natural place. That's been just, in my opinion, unfortunately shamed by human societal, like, practices and deprivation. I mean, in my opinion, you know, when it comes to Southern society conditions, culture, what was accepted, and it's shameful. But anyways, thank you very much for joining me, and let me know what you think. This went longer than I really planned on, but I mean, I just there was things that I wanted to say about certain sections, and I hope I added value. But anyways, thank you very much for joining me. Again, let me know what you think. Check out, you know, all the links and stuff like that. And anything that I missed or didn't say, or maybe you thought was wrong or whatever, like, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for joining me. And until next time, peace. ClearTalk. I'm out.